Here we are again for the 11th episode of Hearing Words of Wisdom. Let it be in the Wisdom Factory. Hello and welcome to the Wisdom Factory, which is a forum for open-minded people like you and us who have knowledge, experience and wisdom to share with the world. I'm Heidi Hornlein.
And I'm Mark Davenport.
We have created this show because we want to bring our knowledge and experience out into the world. The things we personally have learned and which has opened our vision of what it is all about. And we want to bring you in contact with people who not only have interesting things to say about their topics and their lives, but who have also an evolved perspectives on themselves and on what they are doing. In other words, who are operating in an integral mindset.
We both were attracted to Integrale several years ago, and it literally changed our lives. We're both by history counselors and coaches, and especially for creating thriving relationships. And we run an association, a retreat, a guest house called Paradiso Integrale here in Italy, and we would love you all to stop by and visit.
Today our show has a sort of an apex of our first season of the Wisdom Factory, because today two important people meet here for the first time, and this is Jeff Salzman, who is an outstanding member of the Integrale community, and Martin Shervington, a very important influencer in Google Plus community. And they will talk about the future of business. Hello, both of you.
Hello, Heidi. Hello, Mark.
Hello.
And so grateful that you are here.
Really.
Now, before we dive into the topic, we want to present a little bit to people who you are. So first about Jeff Salzman. He was a successful businessman before he left everything behind to dedicate himself entirely to the integral message. He is offering free weekly podcasts, The Daily Evolver, where he discusses the most important questions of our time. Jeff worked with Ken Wilber for 3 years, building the Integrale Institute. He is the co-founder of Career Track, one of the world's leading professional development companies. And he is a long-time spiritual practitioner in many traditions and has a master's degree in Indo-Tibetan Buddhism from Naropa University. Jeff spent the last few years as a co-founder and a lead teacher of Boulder Integrale, which is now the Integrale Center. Is there anything you want to add, Jeff?
No, Heidi, I think you did just fine there, and happy to be here, and hello to everybody.
Okay. And Martin Shervington is an explorer of consciousness, a marketer, a writer on communications, and including in Google Plus, where he's very well known by his Plus Your Business offers, newsletters, and community, and also as a most valued guest in many Hangout shows. Martin is a big fan of Ken Wilber, Robert Keegan, and the whole Integrale world. He has a degree in law and business and organizational psychology and NLP. He has spent almost 20 years working as an executive coach, business consultant, and marketing psychologist. He's also the author of 8 books and many, many other publications, too. So,
would you like to add something?
No, you're great. Hello, everyone.
Okay.
All right.
Hello.
Cool.
Yeah, I want to welcome again all the audience, and we are so happy that you are here to be witness of this historical meeting between
this summit, yes.
Integrale and Google. I mean, Google plus Integrale, but
Yes.
because we want to have more integral people here in Google Plus, and
Yes,
this
we
is our mission too. So, Jeff, I would like, or would you like to ask him?
Well, you were a successful businessman, Jeff, and so we wonder, what was that experience like for you, and what were you like then? How did that career go? How did it end? Would you do such a thing differently these days? Just maybe you can pick up on some of that.
Yeah, I started my business in 1982 and sold it in 1995, so did it for about 13 years. And it's just, you know, apropos this discussion of Google Plus meeting business and so forth, it's just remarkable to me to think that in 1995, which is what now, 20 years ago, when I sold my business, we didn't have email.
Mm-hmm.
We passed things around in these manila folders where everybody would sign off and pass it to the next person. There was no internet. We did direct mail, so we sent brochures really all over the world. We are responsible for the destruction of, I can't tell you how many trees. I mean, I live with this guilt. And it's just such a different world now. It's an amazing thing. And you ask how I was different back then. I think, you know, I've always been a seeker, but at this stage of my own development where I was building the business, I think I was probably, you know, center of gravity modern, postmodern, you know, orange, green. And I think I probably have shifted to maybe green integral these days. But of course, integral continues to include everything that came before. Would I do things differently now than I did then? Yeah, I'm sure I would. But only because it's, as I said, such a different world. And just one more thing I would point out in terms of my own development is that, you know, when I was really rocking and rolling and doing my work, as I said, there was no social media, there was no internet, at least available to companies at that point. And I find that developmentally, you know, I'm an evolutionary. I see the world continuing to move and develop. And I can actually see the world moving and developing beyond me. Because I don't take easily to, I mean, I'm good with the internet, but I don't take easily to the social media. I mean, I'm confused by it. I don't remember what buttons to push. I feel like a social anxiety when I open Facebook because I don't know who's been looking at what and who's trying to communicate with me. Am I keeping up? Am I not? I mean, it's interesting. My assistant, who is 40, so he's 20 years younger than me, has a natural facility for this that I don't. So it's just interesting as an evolutionary to see myself being left behind as the ship continues to sail, you know, into the distance. And, you know, so I guess I'd stop there and just lay that out on the table.
Well, I know what you mean about that generational difference.
It's true. It's real.
Yeah, it is. Email is old hat to young people. Yeah.
Oh, please.
Yeah.
Okay, Martin, what would you like to say to that?
I don't know where to go with that. There was so much good stuff that I think. I mean, you took me back to 95. 95, I didn't have an email. I think I got my first email, and I was in Costa Rica, and I was traveling, and some American friends said, "You're getting an email. It's 97, dude. Come on." Yeah. So that was my first one. And I look now. I've spent 3 years. In March the 6th, I think it was, 2012. I started on Google Plus, and I've spent probably almost 12 to 15 hours a day on Google Plus, pretty much every day. And people may say that's a slight exaggeration. It's probably not actually. Or I've been thinking about it, and I've built a business around it, and I've learned a lot about this as a set of communication tools. So when you're talking about the anxiety and all those things, I understand that because I see how people respond when I'm communicating to them about certain aspects, Jeff. And I think that we've got to look at the why, the benefit of all of this, and also potentially the what as well. What is happening here is we're connecting. And I think one of the lovely reveals that I heard from, it was the ex-vice president of engineering, Vikram Dotra, who we've always seen that Google Plus is very much his baby. He left Google last year. But he said in an interview with Guy Kawasaki in South by Southwest, and I think that was 2012. And what I used to do, I used to go and I'd have the videos on and I'd transcribe. I'd actually be writing, before I had somebody to do videos to transcription, and making notes on all of the things that Googlers would say that weren't the scripted things necessarily that were just the casual conversations, because I could learn a lot. And one of the things was, Vic had said, we're connecting people in new ways. And when we start to look at what we're doing right now, we've got a Hangout on Air event. It's live streamed onto YouTube. We have an event thread as well, and I can see people on the event thread, and I just popped in and plus their comments, a bit like liking. And that means that they get a notification, and it means that they're being acknowledged, that they've seen that I've seen that, and I've read that. And we're starting to connect. And then we start to go to the threads of posts that have been put out. And people, we were talking earlier, I put a post out about Wales and talking about how it's always raining here, it's 270 days. You guys had read that. So straight away, we're already starting to talk about a point of reference, which is a conversation starter. So from a business point of view, what I've been doing and what I've been helping other people do is to go, okay, what do you do with this? Where does this go? How do you use this? Because ultimately, what's it about? And you'll like this, Heidi and Mark. It's about building relationships. It's about helping people build relationships. And what we're doing right now is I've got all your analogs. I've got your facial expressions. I've got your body posture, and I'll hear your voice tone, and I'll see all. It's more than a podcast, and because all we've got with that is that section of the communication spectrum. And then you go, okay, well, what can people do with this technology? And it could be that they build a community of people around their content. It could be the blog content. It may be that they use this for podcasting, or they record on this and then they take the audio and they can put that up onto. Oh, do you want me to speak quieter? Is that what you said? Speak less. What was that? I didn't know what you said. I tell everybody. I warn everybody. I did stand up. I said to them beforehand. You get me on stage. This is a good option. I'll keep speaking. So you have to shut me up. Go on.
Okay. Oh, I did, because you were talking about relationships, and I think which is happening here. I want to do some shout outs. I hope I get everybody. Here's Karen, Tin, Dave Pipe, William Rock, Carmen Mandik, Dave Pipe. We have that. Cindy Fleming, Alton, and other people, Mr. Lin, and I'm Marcus Dieterle. I hope Memel is here. And Marcus Dieterle again. I'm trying to get it in the comments. I hope I haven't forgotten anybody. So write another comment, then I will see you popping up on the top. This is what happens. People come, and also Patty is here, with whom we will have tomorrow. Very interesting first Hangout show. They are with Misty. They are beginning a show about death.
Yep.
You know,
the
and
death chicks.
The death chicks, and to get out of the taboo zone, this topic. And I think for this, Google Hangouts are a wonderful thing. So, just to say what is possible, and the connection. I was
going to say, I've died on stage a few times doing stand-up. I'm sorry. If you need anyone, just let me know. I'm there. All right.
Okay, we will invite you. Oh, this is wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jeff, I can understand a little bit what you are saying, but you know, about 2 years ago, I have done the decision. I don't want to become old in this way. I have not enough money to pay people who do the stuff for me, so I have to learn it. And so I dived in, and I'm on Google Plus now for about 14 months, I would say. And I did some courses, how to use it. It is not easy at the beginning, but I get into it. I mean, I have enough confidence now to do these things, to invite you, big people, you know, who am I? No. You know, you get a different confidence when you do these things, when you don't read. We don't read, and only at the beginning we read for not to miss things. But you are yourself. And what is, as far as I understand, the, let's say, ideology on Google Plus, that we build trust by being authentic ourselves. And when we are going to sell something, people choose us because they know us. You know, so coming back into the business.
Yeah. I mean, what this does, it gives you an opportunity to see the person behind the brand. And then people can make decisions. Do they like what the person's saying? Do they trust them? Who are they associated with? And what knowledge base they have? And there's a lot of information that's contained within a short period of time. Now, interesting enough, this isn't the ideal background at all. I'm plonked here before I go back to California, and very often I'll be in Brazil. And this is before Christmas, and you'd have a different scene, and you've got then people seeing you in different contexts. And I was in San Diego before then, and people are very much in your life. And I think one of the biggest influences on me is Chris Brogan. I don't know how many of you know Chris, but he's a wonderful writer, a great guy. But this technology is, social media is a bit of an almost misunderstanding when you get into it. It's just another way to be communicating. And it just happens that there are social platforms. You have Facebook, you have Twitter and Pinterest and Google Plus and things like that. But when you look at it and go, what is happening here is people are able not only to listen, but form and build relationships through interaction in this setting. And this is one of the most powerful ways to build relationships because it is interactive. And I'm on the events thread, so I've just got the events thread on the side, and I know I could be using a comment tracker, and I can see Misty, for instance, and I can see William Rock, and I know these, and I can see Michelle. They are part of one of the communities, whether it's Plus Your Business or Plus Your Life, and the level of interconnectivity that occurs here is incredible. And this is one way, and it's free, and it isn't that difficult once you've just learned just to get over the hill of trying something new. But I understand it, and I understand the concerns. But when you can do that, you're able to build trust just by being yourself. And that's a great thing for business.
I tried to send you a message. Wait, Jeff. I had muted you because of the machine sound. You must unmute yourself here on the top. On top. You go up to the top. Okay.
Click on the microphone.
Okay. No.
Nope.
How about that?
Yeah, did it.
Yeah, I think actually one of the great sort of fruits of the social media and just, I guess, the sort of internet connectivity itself is the Integral community itself. I mean, I don't know about when many of you first ran into Integral, but I think I got my first Ken Wilber book somewhere in the mid-'80s. And we were talking a little bit before the show actually started about how powerful Integral is in terms of literally giving you a different mind, a different way of seeing the world. And I was lit up. I was transformed by the book. It was actually Up from Eden by Ken Wilber. And I was a different person at the end of reading it than when I began. And I had nobody to talk to. I tried shoving that book down, I don't know how many of my friends' throats, to absolutely no avail. And I was actually in some pain of loneliness around not having anybody to connect with. And now, that's impossible. I mean, there's so much going on in the Integral world, all of it virtually, and this is one of the great things is that there is actually an Integral community. Back in the, before 2000, there were, many hundreds of thousands, maybe more, of people who had read Ken, and, some people knew Ken and all of that. But since the turn of the century here, we now have an Integral community. In the last, 10 for sure years, maybe 15 years, we have developed worldwide a community of maybe millions of people who are able to connect and find friendship and have people to talk to. And I don't think we can overestimate the effect of that on, evolution itself.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I read also Up from Eden it was another book, but this was the one who brought me to the breakthrough, where I couldn't wait to finish it, and it was the really thing about 97. And I had the same experience. We didn't communicate because there was nobody around. My friends all had question marks in their eyes when I talked about that, Yeah. And this is, you imagine, Jeff, imagine this together with Google Plus on Hangouts. All the people in the comment stream, you see the comments. I will bring you up a comment, for instance, that you can see what William Rock said. William Rock says, once you find trust in yourself, then you can open your mind to G+, and the opportunities it brings to your brand. company or personal? Who moved the cheese? This was a topic which went around about 2 weeks ago in Google+. You know, these things, the people in the audience are here. So when you do your podcast, which I recommend to everybody to listen to the podcast of Jeff, where he talks about the moments in politics of the week before, and he gives the integral perspective on that. It's such a big orientation. But imagine we could see you. And we could have the recording immediately afterwards, which we have here, you know? This is... Okay, we are talking about
let's
business.
not be too hard on Jeff now. Come on, because I'm a little bit...
I'm on iTunes.
Arbitrato.
Do I get points for that?
Okay. All right. Yeah, so, but these comments about integral make me want to say, okay, but what's this mean for business? Obviously, we're talking about evolution. We're talking about change. We're talking about different ways of reaching people. And now that we can reach them, you know, if we're integral, we could screw up in brand new ways we never could before. We could do damage as well as create good. Yes, we could. All right. I'm being theoretical here. Okay. But how do we make this combination of possibilities of integral and business and modern communication and Google+, you know, really into a tool to change the world for the better? How do we do that? That's the question.
Shall I kick off just one thing around this? We'll see where it goes. But what I've found, and this happens, and I've got examples of this almost every day, when you throw yourself into, and this isn't community, into the network, because the network is primarily you post in public a lot of the time. So very often you have things, and this is what you were saying earlier, Jeff, you go and you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know who's going to be there, you don't know who's going to engage. But if you produce content and you're building an alignment with yourself, with the brand, and people kind of know what they're getting, it's not too much all over the place. So for me, I post on Google+, I post about surfing, I post on Google products at Singularity University and things like this, and science stuff, and they're kind of there. Okay. What you've got then is you're getting input and you're getting a flow in of how people are responding to you, and it's often a lot more and a lot more fast than you get in the real world. But you've also start to look for the people that can challenge your perception, because these people that are coming in, they give you a perception. You're interpreting how they are perceiving you. You then go out and you start to perceive other people. You look at their content, you look at the way they're interacting, you start to build these views and these cultures and subcultures, and you start to map what is happening, and you can create, to some extent, a mental map of the territories that you're in. But what I found one of the most valuable things, and from a business point of view, is having the best people that you can for you shake your own perceptions and go, do you know what? That's either not going to work, or it's a bad idea, or why are you doing that? What's going on with you for you to be making that sort of decision? And having that sort of team around you that makes you better in the decisions that you make. That's been one of the most incredibly valuable things. And I'll give an example today. David Ameland, people that are watching this, you know, I love David dearly. He's a wonderful guy. I needed somebody to say, are you sure that's a good idea? And David was the man today, and I just went, darn it, I'm acting too short term, which is not something I've particularly done on here, because that's one of the big things. You cannot rush this. This is about moving forward, your personal brand moving forward, your business moving forward. You don't build trust quickly, and you'll lose it quickly if you make 1, 2, 10 of the wrong moves, whatever it is. Everything you do in a digital space is significant. It sends a sign to somebody. Every comment that you leave, every +1 that you give, every share, you know, we take up authorship of this content. We are becoming integral to this thing. It's not just about the system. We are in it now. So Google+, they say it's a social layer across Google's products and services. We've also got this semantic sense that's being created. We are connecting ourselves. We're giving more of our information, our data, into Google through the comments that we're sharing and all the content we're sharing. but also who we're connecting with and the conversations that we're having, and we're building these communities. Yeah. And it's vast, it's enormous, and I think we've got to have a look at what else is out there. We've got Twitter, and Twitter's evolving, these platforms evolve, Facebook's evolving, but one of the things right now is that this, for business, let's look at what we've got. We talk about Hangouts. Okay, we've got Gmail, we've got Google Apps if you're on that platform, we've got Google Drive. If you're not using Drive for collaboration and you want to work in groups, it's unbelievable as a tool. Okay, we've got YouTube. You can optimize videos. You can take one of these little Hangout videos, you could reduce it to 3 minutes, optimize it, and it could go on YouTube. Okay, search. And we've got Google Maps. Search. It's you. It's Google. Man, you Google. You know, and we've got Google Maps, and then we've got Google Drive, Google Play, and Google Wallet, and it's in the whole ecosystem. And we're very much part of this. And you're almost choosing your ecosystem. And I think Google's the ecosystem more and more for businesses to choose, and for individuals who want to be themselves, that brand, that business. Whereas Facebook seems a lot going in the direction of consumption and entertainment, to me. A lot more. Yeah. But don't get me wrong, it's an amazing database, and you can do some great things from a marketing point of view, and I know people are very, very good at that. But this, we've got some really good tools for bringing people together and collaborating, and the opportunities of connecting with people that you wouldn't otherwise connect with here. You can break through the noise here, and you can network very easily.
Well, one of the things that you said that I really resonate with, Martin, is that you get to get feedback. You get to get critiques from people who are actually, as Ken talks about this, is that you want to get feedback from what he calls the community of the adequate. That is, you want to get feedback from people who are actually qualified, who understand what you're talking about, so that you can get useful feedback. And I get so much more feedback now with the work I'm doing now than I actually did when I was in business. You know, I was in my little silo, and I was doing my best to go to conferences and talk to other people and so forth. But now it just flows in naturally. And there's actually something about the integral stage of development in general, where we want to turn towards our critics. So, because we know that there's things we don't know. We know that there's a new Jeff that wants to come online, that comes online through community and through feedback. Yeah. And I often think of this also, even in, you know, if you go to the comments section on CNN or some of these places, particularly these, or Reddit, or some of these unmoderated or even moderated comments, where people are flaming each other and calling each other names and assassinating each other's character and all of that sort of thing. I actually think there's a fruitfulness to that. I mean, I often think when I read the comments sections on some of these articles that I read, it's almost like I'm going back to the voice dialogue therapy sessions I had back in the 80s, where I'm sitting there and my inner critic comes out and my inner cop, and there's all these voices, but there's actually some intelligence to it that enables people to metabolize a lot of their anger. Nothing wrong with that. And it's actually safe. Nobody's really getting hurt. We're merely assassinating each other's character instead of assassinating each other.
That's progress. Yeah.
It's interesting you say, Jeff, for the last year, I've been talking about community and been talking about the role and the value of community. And that on here it's the foundation. It is a community. There's a community of people that, and before communities as a thing, because there's actually a thing called Google Communities, before they came along, there was a Google Plus community, and it probably had a few thousand people in it. And I came in towards the middle end of that phase, and then communities happened, I don't know, about 10 months later. And that view changes everything. As soon as you put yourself in a community, and you are then, you're not going to necessarily get on with everybody. And it's okay. You don't go around necessarily, saying everything that you think about everybody, but you're not going to. That's okay. But what happens is you find the people you relate to, and you find the people. And what I found more and more, it's become about business, and the relationships have flourished because there's some business interest that we have that connects us. And that means that instead of having a conversation, we're talking about something and then throwing in a viewpoint. So, for instance, what you reminded me, Jeff, which is beautiful, is taking feedback from people. I have a mentor, Tim Healy, amazing guy, and he supported me so much around Wilbur's work. And he said, listen to people that don't have an axe to grind. Those are the ones to listen to. And it's like, yeah, that's it. As soon as there's something that's underlying, then those aren't necessarily the ones. But you have to become increasingly resilient. You don't become perfectly resilient. There's no such thing. But you become more certain in what you're doing, I think, when you're in this kind of space, and you feel more okay with it. And you know, I went on retreat with Joseph Goldstein one time, he was teaching there and doing Vipassana, and as a phrase, and I've got this as a post to go out everybody at some point. All it says is, it's okay. And it's interesting to see how we're talking something which is developmental, which is a view, and we're talking about perceptions, we're talking about multiple perceptions in an open environment, a public environment. When you're building communities, I'm not saying building communities, you build conversations with people around content that allows a community to form. And then we're talking about business. So if we're looking at what is going on here, people are coming together, and you're able to, through the emergence of people supporting, evangelizing, embracing, enjoying, all being part of, things are emerging. And for me, it took 2 years and 4 or 5 months before I started charging for things on here, and I still gave away the stuff that was free. But it's needed to get to a point where it is an emergent quality of the network. If you carry on and you don't do business, you have a hobby and you have some lovely friends around, and it's awesome and it's great to enjoy. But one of the things that we're looking at, and one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about the community aspect, I believe that community-based business is something that can emerge in the future, where people are using these sorts of tools, coming together and finding out what value they can add as a group to the wider world. But it's not going to be quick, because all of these things, you have to find the people, you have to find the models, and you have to experiment. Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of people are doing.
Well, Martin, let me ask you a question, because there's a sort of a missing piece for me, or there's a piece that maybe is just now coming online. But when I think about the future of business and the future of commerce in general, you know, I don't know when this is going to be, but at some point, you know, we're going to be able to create our basic gross physical needs through factories, and you know, people aren't going to have to work in the ways that we had to work before, and assembly lines and that sort of thing. Things get more and more automated, and so the economy presumably moves to an economy that we would call sort of more of a second-tier economy, where people are actually trading in their ideas and their creativity and their you know, sort of thought processes, but yet we have to get paid for that, and money has to be exchanged, I guess. And so you talk about charging for this, and we were joking a little bit before we started the call that I pay for the privilege of being, you know, an internet personality to the degree that I am, because there's no monetizing it that I could find right now, and I don't care that much. But you know, are we seeing the arising of basically a lower right structure of commerce, where we can sort of micro pay each other? And I don't know, I'm sort of lost there, and be curious as to what you think about that, Martin.
So, well, the first thing, I think that as the robots take over, and I welcome our robot overlords.
I do too.
And we are then paid to shine their shiny boots. Right. But as that happens, you know, we know that automation we know it's going to lead to change. We can see this already, but we can also see, I mean, I'm a big fan. I mentioned about the Singularity University. I like what they're doing, and because I'm a Google fan and I look at where the money's going, they've got some interesting projects. so I think the steps along the way, if you look at, as a business model, Uber, and you look at how disruptive that is, not just in the US, but all over the world, what is happening is democratization of services, but also ease of communication and higher quality service. And I give an example, and then we come to the micropayment type idea. You're going to, I guess everybody has either come across Uber, taxi firm, an individual has a phone, happens to be an iPhone, and you have an app, and you call them over, and they basically arrive, and they serve you. It's like a taxi service, and it's around about 30% most of the time cheaper. Now, the bit that people may not know, there's a ranking system. You rate them at the end. You know that bit. They rate you as well. Now, you have to ask them, what's going on, and because I got marked down because they didn't turn up one time, and I was fuming. It's like, hold on, this matters to me. I don't want to have a marking down, because so I complained to them and said that was you, not me, and they reversed it, and they reversed the charge. And I was like, what's going on here? I'm being judged by a taxi. It's not a taxi firm anymore. It's a relationship with one person who picked me up and served me. And I think that this movement, and in fact there's things that I'm working on that tie into this, what's happening is people are having a voice about what they receive. And whether it be through a payment system, because they're not that difficult to set up. You could have a little, on your podcast, you could say, a donate, subscribe button, and it can go straight through to PayPal right now, and somebody can decide what they want to pay you monthly, and it will take, well, if you're watching this, Coleman, because he's looking into this, it will take half an hour. Half an hour is all it would take. No, but it won't. But it will take how long it takes. But that's my web guy. But the idea is we've got the systems in place, and we can do these things already. But what you need is a slight cultural shift, and this is often what we're dealing with here, is what is appropriate at a certain point in time in order to take as a next step. Because if it's not appropriate, it fails because people aren't around to support it. Because it's just either, we were talking earlier about you've got to meet people where they are. You've got to pace people's expectations, and you have to support them where they are, whilst also having a vision of potentially where it can go. And I have a view which is every day take a step forward. Take a step forward. That's just, and don't try and take 10 steps forward, because the one step is where everyone is around you. And your mind may be 10 steps forward of where you think it can be, but nobody else is. And it's about communication. So it's how, like right now, I know there's people that are in my community, and it's our community. And that's another thing, is you don't own a community. You belong to a community, you support people, you grow the community, but actually anyone can leave by the click of a button. So what do you actually own? And I think all of these cultural shifts that you have along the way, or internal shifts, they help the communication that you have with people, and it goes back to the trust building and the brand building, and we're using this as the social system side that allows people to find their voice. And I think that's really what we found. And if I say to people, what's the greatest advantage of being on Google+? Personal brand building, connection with people. That's the greatest. And I can talk about social SEO and how we get great search results for businesses. Actually, it's the people.
So you would say the future of business is in the relationships. And when I go to Integrale, when we come into green, we are beginning to be able to create better relationships, I guess. But I think what we still need to learn is really to the collaboration factor in everywhere, also in the Integrale community. And also what I am hearing, there is more this enthusiasm, this emotional thing, which I don't so much see yet in the Integrale community. What do you say about that, Jeff?
With the question about the emotional component?
The relationship and emotional component, yeah, the left.
Yeah, well, first of all, I just point out again that there were no relationships 10 years ago. There was no integral community to speak of 10 years ago. Now it's possible at all. I mean, we could argue that, I mean, there are people in the integral community who you know, they're just, I guess human beings are just natural critics, and that's probably evolutionarily potent. So, you know, 2 cheers for criticism. But there's this sense that somebody needs to lead the way, and somebody needs to, you know, sort of enforce a certain orthodoxy. That was actually what we were trying to do when we built the Integral Institute, 2004, 2005. We wanted to be the center of the integral world. And this was Ken Wilber, and he ought to be at the center of the integral world, and he is. But what happened was that there were people all over the planet who were inspired by Integral. And were they getting it 100% right? No. They were getting some things wrong. They were, you know, driving the orthodox crazy. But there's a certain intelligence to that, where the arena is messy, and everybody's in, and it's like you were talking about, Martin, a minute ago. The feedback, the criticism, that's what actually makes that's the nature of evolution. As I often say, evolution is beautiful, but it's not pretty. So there's a lot of you know, sort of consternation and you know, confusion in the integral world, and I say it's just right on schedule. And you know, we ought to just relax with it and let it evolve. It's beautiful to see.
You are very fortunate to be in Boulder and have all these people around, and other places there are not so many integralists. And I come to a little announcement, because we have decided that we want to create a physical space and a gathering of the people. It was inspired. We are doing the course which is Ken Wilber doing now, the Superhuman Operating System, and it was very inspiring. And a lot of people were gathered around, did Skype calls and so on. And we would like to create a space. I mean, we have the space here in Italy to practice that, so that people in real life come together and do that. And we probably will announce soon an event. We will do an extra episode about that. Because one thing is the internet, this is fine. But then in real life, when we are together and maybe 5-6 days together, and then it comes out how we act and react and how our relationships are, how our relationship skills are, you know. So we need really to practice that.
Well, this is going to be interesting.
Well, all we need to do, the next step in the technology is we need to learn. You're talking about getting together in real space with people physically. It's a beautiful thing, and we do, you know, a lot of that here at the Integral Center. But we have to get the technology where we can do eye gazing on the internet. So, you know, once we get that together, we got it handled at that point.
Well, can I dive in? I think. Can I just say? I think that one of the things. Oh, go on. I mean, go on. See, I'll take on the stage again, Heidi. I'm interrupting.
Yeah, okay.
Go ahead, Martin.
Go ahead.
Virtual reality. I know you're joking about it, Jeff, but actually, I used Oculus Rift, you know, the headset that Facebook bought for however many billion last year. So I tried it a year ago in San Francisco, and it's amazing. Right? And that was an earlier version. Facebook have just, I think it's 1,200 people they're going to be recruiting into the virtual reality section for Facebook. 1,200. That's probably going to be a lot of programmers. I think that if we look at the future of business, and James Dearsley, who he's just finished the show, he's probably not here, but he's in the Academy, a great guy. He's looking at the future of marketing in relation to virtual reality. And I think that if you can look at where we go next and how we can take virtual spaces, and what we're doing right here, right now, look, we've got Colorado, got Boulder, we've got Italy, and we've got Wales, which is cold and wet. But it's... What we are doing is connecting. I can see Layla on the thread, and I can see Sheila on the thread, and that really is where does it go after? Look at evolution. The technology we've got here. This is just the start. Gideon put a lovely quote out, and all these are familiar Google Plus people. He put a post out and he said, "We're closer to the year 2030 now than we are to the year 2000."
Wow.
Yeah, and it's like and you've got people like Ray Kurzweil talking about the singularity, and going the singularity. You know, when do people think that really things are going to start to get very kind of interesting? 2035 was the original prediction. of at some point, we're hitting an evolutionary curve, which is it's in a kick, and it's happening quickly. And I think going back to the original point, and this is where one needs compassion. And what I mean by that is, I and everyone else who's teaching people stuff and enthusiastic and excited, we have to remember that, and you know who I'm talking to who's watching, we have to remember that other people don't learn as quickly as we do, and they need more time and more space, and sometimes we've got to be more patient than we are, and we've got to learn all of those things, and we've got to relax into ourselves. And I think that those aspects of the self, as the technology changes, we've got some challenges, because it is getting quicker. Every year it's getting quicker, and you can feel it. And for those that want to be part of it, we have to support them in a way which allows them to enter the stream in the way that works for them.
But I still want to touch Mark, and not virtually, but in reality.
And I'm
well,
really
no,
glad
absolutely.
about that.
But no, the point happened last year when I spoke at a conference in San Diego, and it was the first time that my on and offline life suddenly went, blah, 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 it's the same. The amount of people that I met, there was no difference in self in those sorts of ways. And that was an interesting... There's different contextual conversations. We talk about this, and this is an identity thing, is if your grandmother was in the room, would you say that thing? The grandmother test, as it's going to be known. David Amland's grandmother test. And sometimes you wouldn't put that. Do you swear? Do you talk about that sort of nature of content? Because when you're online, if you're on Google Plus and you put it out publicly, it's not contextual. Somebody could be eating their breakfast and you're putting something out in the evening. You could put something out that is very much against somebody else's views, and you basically have just a degree of consideration. When you meet people in real life, you tend to be speaking to a smaller group. Although sometimes people are tweeting. I had this one time. People are tweeting what are you doing? Put the phone down and having a conversation with me. But you learn to have different conversations in different places with different people, but you're the same person having the conversations.
Yeah. We are very far away in time, but I would like to ask Jeff still about Integrale, because I think there are people who have no idea what it is. So can you just in 2 sentences say why people should get involved with it, and maybe also where to start? Because you said before Martin, that for you it was psychoactive, as Ken always calls it. As soon as you enter into this worldview, you wonder why should you see ever the world in a different way? I mean, why couldn't you have seen that before? Let's say it in this way. So what is it, Jeff? What makes it so...
Well, we're always the holy grail of integrals, trying to get it in 2 or 3 sentences. But basically what integral is a view of the world that sees that evolution is not only happening in terms of our what we would call exteriors, that is, we've had atoms evolve to molecules, to cells, to beings, on up to human beings. And we know that that's well established by science. What Integral would add to that is that we are not only evolving in terms of bodies and in terms of the cosmos, but we are evolving in terms of individual consciousness and in terms of collective consciousness. So there are stages of consciousness evolution that are happening on the planet, and with each individual person, that makes sense. And there are stages of development. There's traditionalists, there's modernists, there's postmodernists. These are all online at the same time. They don't like each other. They war with each other. And what Integral does is Integral sees this, what we would call the 4th dimension of time, that there's a movement of history, not only in the world and in culture, but in us as individuals. And that just helps us to befriend everybody. We stop expecting a 6-year-old to be a 12-year-old. We don't see a 6-year-old as being a defective 12-year-old. We see that everybody gets to be who they are, everybody gets to be where they are. And the question then is, how can we make the world as healthy as possible at the stage of development that it's at? And so it just really helps so much in understanding culture politics, war and peace, economics. As I did an interview with Ken Wilber 4 or 5 months ago about just the state of the world. And he said something that when he first said it, I thought, it's a little arrogant, but I've really come to realize just how true it is in a very simple way. He said, I don't see how people could understand the world without Integral. I don't either. I mean, when I think of how I saw the world before I understood integral theory, I could actually feel myself become anxious in a way that understanding integral, I relax because I see that, there's an unfolding towards goodness, truth, and beauty that is unmistakable in history, and that there's no reason in the world why that can't continue. And in fact, we can see day by day, week by week, how it is continuing, and that the world, is a much better place than it has ever been. I think we're heading to a sacred world, and I just don't know how long it's going to take.
Yeah, this is fine.
That's the question.
I would like to add, for instance, many things which before I couldn't understand why it was so. For instance, misunderstandings and wars in couples. We are working on relationships, And with Integral, you begin to understand that they just are on a different level, and whatever they say and try to make themselves understood, the other one, which is at least the one on the lower level, just cannot understand it. And understanding Integral, I think for me at least, it happened that I become much more tolerant with you, for instance. And
I'm happy about that, too.
Yeah, and I can leave people where they are. I can choose if I want to be in contact with them. When I met red people, this is a special language of the stages of development. So if you want to learn more about it, go to Jeff's lectures every Tuesday. You might post it afterwards in the comment stream here and give them your address.
Will do.
So you become much more, an open mind. It's really an open mind because you can understand why these people are in this way, and you can also understand that you have very little possibility to change them as we wanted before. No, we want always to change our husbands, for instance.
Well, that's the other thing, Heidi, is I would say that before Integral, I had this sort of basic sort of orientation that everybody was a defective version of me.
Getting close.
It's like, how could you think that? Isn't it obvious that this is the way things are? Well, no. Actually, you realize, no, people have completely different antennas and different ways of processing, and different facts make sense to them, and they come to different conclusions. And what a relief. I can relax. I can enjoy people for who they are. I can be friendly to everybody. It's remarkable, the change that happened.
And there's no good and bad, because you understand what before you saw as bad is just what they see, and they are there. As you said, a 6-year-old person is not yet 25, and you won't judge him or her as being 25. So it's very logical. And Jeff, you really are the embodiment of inspiration and hope and, what can I say, positivity.
Well, I don't know. I want to say sometimes he's an integral lullaby, and I just kind of melt in and let myself get tucked in by him,
Oh,
and
thank you,
beautiful.
guys.
Oh, good. So we are coming to an end. There is a possibility to give your last word, not the very last, I hope, but for this session. Who wants to begin?
Go ahead, Martin.
I don't know what to say. I've enjoyed this, so thank you for inviting me in. That's the main thing, and thanks to everybody for watching. And it's I think that the takeaway for me and the reminder. I mean, I'm very much embedded in Google Plus, and I'm glad, Jeff, you've had an hour on a Hangout now, which is great. We'll see who else we can bring over. But the value of being here is about additional or alternative perspectives, and it's what you're saying is that we can get fixed, and I know I still get fixed sometimes, that we see the world in one way, and it's like that, and it's very good to go roaming on Google Plus and to enter and to search for things that are just different. I love the science communities, and I love just going and diving in and watching a snippet of well-curated content. And I look at something of art, and I go, wow, this is kind of cool. I won't spend all of my days in those places, but in my virtual space, it allows me to have difference. And I think that's the thing that we need sometimes. We have to have different viewpoints. Otherwise, we don't challenge ourselves, we stagnate, and therefore we're not going to develop. And I think that's a useful reminder of the value of having other people around, because stuck on our own, we're not that useful on our own. We're okay, but we need the community and we need positive, but we also need that challenge when it's appropriate to challenge us. So thanks for getting me to think.
Thank you very much.
That's nice.
And Jeff?
Well, yeah, thank you. And thank you, Martin. It's really good meeting you. And just even getting ready for this hangout. This is my first hangout. And just, getting the technology together and seeing the possibilities and looking at the people talking over here and the comments being made. I feel like, I've had a sort of updraft of what's next and what's happening, and it's exciting to me. And so thank you so much, and thank you everybody, and thank you especially Heidi and Mark for pulling it together.
Yeah, so one of our big dreams has come true, Yep. We got you here, and we got you together with Martin, and people are watching us. This is wonderful, really wonderful.
Yeah.
So thank you, both of you. And
This is as great as Up from Eden then, right?
Yeah, right on.
Okay.
A big kiss.
a new stage.
Wow.
So, coming to an end, thank you everybody who has seen us here, who has watched us.
Yes.
And we will next week have an episode with Cecil Green and Dennis Wickröth with Rock.
Yeah.
A German guy, and it is about integral operation systems for organizations. And we will talk about holacracy and Collab, which is the system which Cecil Green will present. And I invite you. It is amazing what in the way of structures of business is coming up, completely new ways of leading a business, of leading organizations altogether. So stay tuned and come.
Okay.
And we talked already about that.
I want to tease them again, just to remind them, that this European integral experiment is continuing and is gestating and is going to have something to say soon. So
Yes.
stay tuned.
Stay tuned. We will do an extra episode about that. And we still want to come together, and touch us.
Meet space. Oh
yeah,
my goodness.
Yeah, I cannot hear anybody anymore. So thank you everybody, and bye-bye. And please, when you watch it afterwards, leave the comments. Everybody will answer. Okay?
Yeah. And share.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.